Good day and greetings from the Great White North. My name is Prickly Poo and welcome to day 330 of a year of change. This week, we finished off week 47, so we're starting in where we have about 5 weeks left. We're starting week 48 today. So, before we get into the actual topic, first things first. Oh, I feel like I'm drooling. Yeah. First things first, we do our weigh-in. I had a bit of difficulty with my weigh-in this morning. I think I might need new batteries because it was basically like looking at a random number generator. I've lost 6 pounds. No, I've lost 1 pound. No, I've lost half a pound. Oh, no, I've lost 4 pounds. So I've sort of readjusted everything and just taken the highest number like I normally do. So I did make a little bit of progress. I could have taken an average, which would have been way off. There was only about a 2 pound difference between the two, but I figured, no, I'm still going to just take the highest number, go from there, and just sort of keep going. So I still have time to, reach that 100 pound mark if I keep trying and, really sort of smarten up. But I don't want to go overboard with it, so it's curious to see if I'm going to reach it before the end. I don't know yet, but we do need to do that. This week actually, last week we sort of reoriented everything, and just tried to find a good adjustment that would fit with what we're trying to do. And what I've noticed is that over the past couple of weeks, on the Thursdays and Fridays, I don't have as much energy to really finish getting through what I need to get through. So I've needed to readjust that and things like that. So, like that and things like that. That made no sense. You know what I mean? I'm trying to sort of recap what we did last week. So by this time, you probably have a good idea as to what the exercise is that you want to do. Whether it's super beneficial right now is yet to be seen because that's going to take a little bit of time. But you'll know what you want to do. You have a rough schedule worked out, and you've got things that chances are by the end of this week you've got it figured out whether it works or not. So I want to actually finish this off because this is really sort of our last week before we enter our last month of this year. So I want to do another quick little adjustment. We aren't going to do I was going to say victorious. That didn't sound right. Vigorous exercise yet. That will be next week. Just to give you a little bit of warning, but it's going to be okay. The main thing for this week is that although we've done some adjusting and sort of tweaking our exercises and things like that, we also have been gradually building up, whether it's an increase in time or frequency, the days that you're working. But by now you have a good idea as to what days work for you, if you're a morning person or an evening person, whether you save your stuff for the weekends or whether you like doing it throughout the week. I'm more of a throughout the week kind of person, very lazy on the weekends, but that's part of my tweak that I'm doing as well. Actually, I'll start with that just to sort of give you an idea as to what we're looking for this week. This week, by the end of this week, I really sort of want us to get to a point where we're exercising the recommended allotment of time. Now, it is recommended that with moderate exercise, we do around 150 minutes per week. And that evens out to around half an hour a day. If you're just doing it throughout the day or throughout the week and you leave your weekends, it's half an hour a day. Some of us aren't there yet. Some of you are going to be well beyond where we are at this point. That's fine, but that just sort of gave us a good guide as to what we're looking for. So by the end of this week, I don't want us to get to a point where it's, okay, well now I'm working, or doing exercise 150 minutes a week. These are my times. This is when I have to do it every single time. That's not quite what we're looking for. What we're trying to do for this week is to get it so that we have a good idea, a good picture of what our end game is going to be. So that when we start in the vigorous, we don't have to make any more adjustments. It's just going to be the intensity of it. So the tweak that I'm going to be doing this week is I find that Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays, I'm usually okay. I can, I'm good on the treadmill. Things are fine. But Thursday and Friday, I just do a half-assed job. And I don't know if that's just because it's the end of the week or if it's because I would think day to day things are going fine, or that I really do think that just a matter of, it's the end of the week and combine, end of the weekitis with just doing all the stuff the 3 days beforehand. I tend to kind of half-ass it those last 2 days. So what I'm thinking I'm going to do is switch so that Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, those are the days when I do my regular thing that I've been doing on the treadmill. But instead of me petering off near the end of the week, I want to have it so that, at least during the week, there's still some consistency. So I'm thinking Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Those will be the days when I do my 10 walking, 10 jogging, 10 walking, 10 jogging. Tuesdays and Thursdays will be the days that if I want to half-ass it, I can. I'm going to still try to do my 10 and 10, but if need be, then, the last 20 minutes or half an hour, I can just walk. I'm going to still do the exercise. We still have to do that. I think it's very important for us to at least maintain that schedule. And I may have to offset that by just doing like a leisurely walk on Saturdays and Sundays, which I kind of would like to do just so that it's there throughout the week. Because I find during the weekend I don't do as much as I should be. So that'll give you an idea as to what I'm looking at, so that when this week is done, I can look at it and say, okay, whenever I work out, if it ever gets to that point, when we're doing a workout, whenever I do exercise, I know that Saturdays and Sundays and Tuesdays and Thursdays are sort of a laid-back day. I can do a very easy walk. I don't have to push myself too much. I can stay on moderate. By the end of it, I have a little bit of a sweaty thing going on. But it's not anything that I would look at and say, okay, well, I'm exercising now. I'm just going for a walk. For Monday, Wednesday, Friday, those are my exercise days. So, if you want to have a rest day, then have a rest day, whatever you decide to do. But I think the important thing is that for this week, we get this mapped out, because when we finally do sort of, look at I was going to say a different V word. When we start looking at vigorous exercise next week, then you're going to want to have a good idea as to where you can put it in. And for this week, we know that by now you probably have a really good idea as to what the exercise is, what your intensity should be to get you to where you need to be for that moderate exercise. You've got probably at least 1 or 2 days a week that you're doing this in, if not 3. And by then, we're going to have a really good schedule as to, okay, this is what my exercise schedule is going to be for the next year or 2 years. And that may change as we go down the road. You might find that you get to a spot 6 months from now or 8 months from now where you're going, this doesn't really work for me anymore, whether it's job changes or life changes or whatever it is, that you can switch things around as long as you're still getting what we need, by the end of it. And although you may not be at a point where you're getting the full 150 minutes yet, and this may feel like you're going a little bit too far with the vigorous exercise. I can't talk at all. I'm still a little bit sick. That's probably why I'm a little dopey in the head. But I'm going to try to stay on target here. Where you still have that vigorous exercise coming up that you might feel is going to be a little bit daunting, keep in mind that this is just sort of bringing us up to where we need to be for the last month. And then if you find that it's too much or if you find that it's too little, then you can always tweak it. This is just sort of a general path for us to look at and say, okay, I can follow this, whether I'm ahead of people or whether I'm behind people. This is where I need to be. So this is really sort of the main reason why I want to do this last little tweak before the final month starts in. Because I want it to get to a point where, you know what exercise that you're doing. You know the intensity that you're going to be working at, whether, what works well for you. And you're going to know a lot better than anyone else is whether or not it's doing you any good. Because you're going to be able to judge it by, if you're out of breath, if you're sore, probably too much, which we talked about last week. Whether or not you can talk or sing, we've had those sort of guidelines for the moderate versus vigorous exercise. And although we are still sort of catching up, and I know I've sort of been flip-flopping back and forth saying, don't want to push things too far, but I want us to have some structure, it is a little difficult to look at it that way. But as long as you can get to a point where by the end of this week you're saying, this is what my exercise schedule looks like, the intensity and the frequency and the type of exercise and all that stuff, you're going to be figuring that out anyway, if you already haven't, or if you haven't already. Yes, if you haven't already. You've already decided this is what I prefer to do while I'm exercising, whether it's jogging or swimming or walking or other walking or something else. I can't think of anything. Sports, there we go. Whatever it is that you've decided to do, that's not going to change. The intensity isn't going to change yet. It's just a matter of having it so that you can definitely map out and say, this is what is going to be, this is what my week is going to look like. Week to week and month to month going forward. And for me, it's a little bit easier because I do my stuff during the week, and then the weekends are usually mine. And although I don't feel like I'm doing what I need to do, at least I have that same schedule and I can tweak it accordingly and move things around where they need to be. And just like the adjustment that we did last week, if you find that you have things mapped out and you say, you know what, this is going to work out well, and then you find, you know, it really doesn't, I need to cut back and leave one day open where I need to do this, so I need to, add time here or take away time there, that's, you're going to be able to adjust that. But this is really just a matter of getting that structure in place, just like we did when we started tracking food for the first time, and we weren't really worried about the calorie count or the fat or the sodium or the sugar or any of the other stuff, just starting things out, just so that we can get into that pattern. That's really what this last one is, so that by the end of this week, then we're going to have a definite schedule. We know what we're going to be working. And let's face it, the vast majority of us already have that because we have been doing this for quite some time. But there are some that you're thinking, you know what, because there's been this change and because there's been this change, I haven't really found anything that works out well. So this week is really important just to get that schedule down. And yes, real life is going to intrude, especially if you have like pets or kids or a job where you don't have set hours. Things are going to intrude when you're going to be doing stuff. You might be just about to start, and then something all of a sudden you have to drive someone somewhere, or your job calls you in. Those are things that we can all take into account when we're doing this. And if you have a day where something happens and you simply don't get to it, as long as it's a legitimate one and you're not like, oh, I was just too busy, but you watched 2 or 3 movies. Like, yeah, I was still too busy. That's not really a good enough reason. And I think that we're so used to sort of making those excuses for ourselves that it's very easy to say, oh, I didn't have time. I didn't really accomplish much, but I didn't have time today. It's very important, I think, that if we're going to be doing this and we're going to be doing it right, just like the tracking of our food, when we first started tracking our food and we were saying, it takes up so much time and you have to go in and every single thing that you eat, you have to put in, and yes, it's annoying. It's time consuming. I mean, especially if you're someone who only does it at the end of the day, when you have to go through and just sort of tally everything up and write down everything that you're doing, if you don't have an app that you can just do it immediately, then yes, there is a time investment. But we've always known that's really what the main thing is for this program, for the series, I should say. The program makes it sound like it's like an army training thing. For this series, right from the get-go, we had said that there was going to be a time investment. I didn't want there to be a thing where you had to go out and spend a whole bunch of money. You didn't have to buy special apps or equipment or clothes or gear or supplements or any of the other stuff. Just a matter of, you're going to have to invest some time in this. And if we want to lose the weight, if we want to get down to where we need to be, if we want to be healthier, if we want to get more fit, I guess would be the best word. I was going to say athletic, but I don't think I'm ever going to get to a point where people can describe me as athletic, but I can get healthier that way, do more exercise. There is a time investment that we have to put it into this. And part of that is figuring out what the time investment is going to be. So for this week, not really an adjustment per se, just finalizing what our schedule is going to be. And for me, it's always been, Monday through Friday. And I've been able to adjust things back and forth that way, so that's not going to change too much. I just think that I need to I'm going to try the Tuesday, Thursday thing, and if I find that on Friday I'm still tired, I'm going to go back to Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Go back to my original thing. Because at that point, it's just a matter that I'm lazy at the end of the week, which is a very good possibility, that I'm simply lazy by the end of the week and I don't want to do anything. Because I've tried pushing myself, and you get to that point where you're halfway through and you think I simply can't. And I mean, I've noticed this for the past couple of weeks. It's always Thursday, Friday that starts getting me. So I figure if I sort of, you know what I mean. So I'm going to try that. And I would suggest that you do the same for this week. And it doesn't have to be every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. If you want to do it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you're fine. If you want to do it Saturday, Sunday, Wednesday, then fine. Whatever days work best for you. Just like finding an exercise that works well for you and finding an exercise that you like, you need to find a time slot that's going to work for you and something that you're going to be able to do. And if you're at a stage where I just have simply no time to do anything at this point, try to figure out where you can make some time, whether it's getting up earlier, going to bed later, whatever you need to do to get to this point. For me, I've had to start getting up at 5 a.m., which I'm not pleased about, but I've gotten used to it. And usually by, within a half an hour, 45 minutes, I'm on my treadmill. And I was always a nighttime person. I always was the kind of person that I would be going to bed at 5 or 6 or 7 in the morning and, sleeping till noon, then getting up and being up all day and, up all night and everything else. So it has taken a long time to get to where I can actually get up and be functional at 5 a.m., especially where I don't leave for work until 3 or 4 hours after that. So, but I don't like just waking up and getting on the treadmill and then getting breakfast and getting cleaned up and rushing out the door. I need to have some time to wake up, which is why I've woken up so early. So you may need to do that as well. There, just like everything else, there are going to be some sacrifices. For me, it's, you know what, if I want to do this, I need to go to bed earlier and get up earlier. Simple fact. I have to do that. I have to track all my food every single day. I can't just say, oh, I'm just going to skip it for one day. I have to exercise to a point where I'm actually sweating, not just going for a leisurely walk every single day. Which is still better than what I was doing before, but for me, I need to be able to get to a point where I feel like it's actually making a difference. And even a slight walk, if that's what you're up to right now, is still better than sitting around doing nothing. So there you go. And those will build up as we go. And next week when we finally start in on vigorous exercise, we'll get a little bit into that. It's not anything that's going to all of a sudden be, oh, this is so daunting. I simply can't do it. It's gone too far, too fast. I don't know what I'm doing. You would have said the same thing 2 months ago when we started looking, when we started sort of creeping up on the exercise bit. You would have said this 6 months ago when we started, making little tweaks to our salt content and our sugar and our fat and everything else. And you would have said this a year ago when, like me, I was 325 pounds. I would have said the same thing a year ago going, I'm not going to be able to track my food every single day. That's ridiculous. But we've adjusted. We've been able to do this. We'll be able to continue doing it. And we're keeping them small. And especially where, I sort of want to get this to this point before we do that last push for our final month, where we're sort of cleaning everything off and saying, this is what we're going to be going through for the rest of our lives. The exercises are going to change, the time frame is going to change, the frequency and the intensity and everything else. And whether or not you're still tracking your food, 3 or 4 years from now, you may be at a stage where you don't need to do that. But for right now, I just want to get us to a point where by the end of the year, we have everything set. We have all the tools that we need to continue going forward. We know what we need to do for food and for exercise. And part of that is getting our time organized. So it is a bit of an investment, but so far the payoff has been really, really good, if I can use a banking metaphor. And I think if we continue on, we can at least look ahead and see that it's going to continue paying off for us. And we know that there's a success rate to this, a very high success rate for what we've been doing so far. So it'll be nice to be able to say, okay, we have everything set in place and continue on after the year is done. And if it takes another year, then it takes another year, but we will get to our goal. And I think that's the main thing. So anyway, for this week, do a little tweak, fiddle around with your time schedule, try to figure out what it is that you need to do to get to that, not necessarily 150 minutes, but something that you can say, this is a good final schedule for me to be on, and then we'll push on from there. But for right now, I'm going to leave this video here, so thank you very much for watching. If you liked it, please poke the like button for me, and in the meantime, keep yourself warm and fuzzy, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.